Hello and welcome to another episode of Offstage Conversations with your hosts today, myself, David, and the wonderful Jake. Jake, how are you doing today?
I'm doing very well, thank you, David. How are you doing?
I am doing dandy. It sounds like the most cheesy podcast in the world when we say this type of stuff. But yeah, no, I'm doing absolutely fine, thank you. I'm looking forward to the guest today. What do you think?
Yeah, me too, very much so. So today we are joined by Kathryn Mather, who is a comedian who has performed up and down the country and has a lot of exciting gigs coming up. She is also one half of 2 Minutes of Pat and Math, a web series that she does with comedian Sean Patrick, which is very, very funny, and I very much recommend that you check it out. But first, before you do that, you need to listen to today's podcast. So, David, will you tell us a little bit more about what we discussed today?
Yeah, so throughout the episode today, we had a wonderful insight into the world of stand-up comedy, something that we haven't discussed before, and to be fair, didn't know a lot about. So today was actually really insightful for ourselves as well, and we hope that it is for you too. Kathryn talks a lot about her previous experiences, good and bad. Quite a lot of the bad stuff, but that all comes as part of the job. But no, it's really good to hear about ways in which she started it off, how she's felt throughout, and how she feels about it now. So yeah, I can't wait for you guys to hear it, and I hope you enjoyed it as well. Jake, what did you think?
I enjoyed it very, very much so. I thought it was a really, really interesting conversation. Lovely to talk to Kathryn again. And of course, we wouldn't be able to do these things were it not for your support. So thank you very much, listener. You can continue to support us by following us on Twitter and Instagram at Oob Theatre, OOB Theatre. You can also find us on Facebook by searching for Out of Bounds Theatre, or at our website, outofboundstheatre.co.uk, or on our brand new Patreon, which is called, if you can believe it, Out of Bounds Theatre, where you can find all kinds of bonus content. So if you enjoyed the show today and are looking for more, please feel free to check that out, as well as subscribing on your podcast platform of choice. I think I've got everything there, David.
I
Is
think
that right?
you've got all of it, and for any of you who want to get involved, please do on those different mediums. Give us a message and tell us your most obscure or funny or embarrassing on-stage moment. We'd love to hear it, and we'd love to have some more content to talk about on these podcasts as well. I'd love to discuss it with more of our guests. So yeah, please do that. But for now, join us, myself, David, and Jake here, and our guest, Kathryn Mather, as we have our offstage conversation.
So, we are joined today by Kathryn Mather. Kathryn, how are you?
I'm good, thank you. All the better for seeing you two. How are you doing?
Stop it.
I'm a charmer.
I hate it. Stop it now.
We're both well, thank you. We're both very well. Thank you very much for asking.
I was actually going to say, my morning was wonderful. I started it off by being quite tired. It's my first day off. I went back to work. And then I started it off by watching Toy Story 3. So I'm traumatised as ever. Wanting a bit of a cry, feeling nostalgic. How's your morning?
My morning, I went for my smear test, and I don't know, I always feel like you should trade numbers after that or something, you know? Couldn't I have a hug? She didn't. She wouldn't let me hug her. Social distancing.
Did you at least get her name?
No.
No. Oh, no.
Traumatic. But last time I tried to have one, which was the first time I ever had one, the nurse did wait until I was naked from the waist down to have a go at me for not changing my address on the system. And I was like, is there any other time that we could perhaps have this conversation? Because I'm the kind of person that would find that rightfully hilarious. I fucking love that story. But a lot of people are very frightened about, getting their minge out to strangers. It's not.
I mean, I would.
Don't we know it?
Yeah. Yeah, it's weird, and I don't know. I think that would put people off. Not me. I was like, can I do it again?
That's why they didn't give you their name. That's why they didn't give you your number.
Yeah.
But we haven't even got onto the first question here, and we're already at this level. Like,
I'm so sorry.
Good
The
start.
gut is all I know.
I'm glad to see you again, Kathryn.
Hey, you asked about my morning.
Yeah. So for anyone who doesn't know, Kathryn, Jake and I used to work together over at an escape room in London. I don't know if we're allowed to say which one, so I'm going to leave that vague and open, but most of the people who we know will know which one. But yeah, so we know each other from that. We're not just super comfortable with each other without even knowing each other. Yeah, so but yeah, so Jake, how was your morning? I forgot to ask.
Yeah. My morning was good. Thanks. Is nice and quiet, nice and simple. I've been thinking a lot about this recording transition. So what I really want to ask is, Kathryn, what is your most obscure onstage memory?
See, I don't feel like I have, like, because a lot of my comedian friends have like some fucking excellent ones, and I don't feel like I have those as such. Like, I've got traumatic ones, or
I think I know which one you're going to be bringing up.
Yeah,
but
well, no, I won't bring the incident up, because it was. It wasn't obscure. It was just awful. But I did one gig, and it was called Comedy in the Dark, and it's. It is exactly what it says on the tin. There's like 100 people there, and they give you enough light to get on the stage, and then you start talking, and then they bring all the lights down, and like there was these two fellas stood by the doors with boxes on sticks, and I was like, what are they doing? And what it was, they were like boxes that fit over the fire escape signs. So there is literally no light. Like, it's pitch black, which I don't know if you guys have performed in like the pitch black before, but there's a moment where like you're just talking, and then the lights go, it goes completely dark, and oh my god, it was terrifying. I had to like really fight through it to keep going, because your initial reaction is no. No, I don't like it, and I felt sick, and I was like, oh my god. And it was really weird, because you're like, it's not a funny story, but like it is just, terrifying, truly terrifying. Yeah.
Yeah. I remember we did a show a good few years ago, had a bit of a promenade aspect to it, and that meant a bunch of us all just crowded in this like little like orchestra pit in this theatre, and it's pitch black, and just the whole time you can't help but feel like something's already gone wrong, just because it's as dark as it is. You both feel like that slight like feeling a bit trapped, but also just like there's no lights anywhere. That means something's broken, that means something's wrong, that means the show's going wrong. Oh god, oh no. It's like it's a worrying, it's surprising just how like intense that feeling can be,
Yeah, I can only imagine the fear, especially like, with theatre, you can kind of, at least you're in control of the audience, or at least you like to think you are most of the time. There's a plan for it, but with a stand-up comedy show, surely that is utterly terrifying, because my first thought was, oh fuck, they've left. Like you've been talking, and if you don't hear any laughs, it's either that it wasn't funny, or they've all just gone, and that's the joke. They've just left you there.
100 people silently leave a room, but like it's surprising, because actually what happens is everyone laughs so much more, because I don't know if you get my vibe, but I'm quite smutty. And a lot of the time, I know, and a lot of people are like, oh no, I can't laugh at that because I'm with whoever, and they'll judge me for laughing at it. But if you're in the pitch black, no one knows who's laughing at what, so everyone's just, it's like noon, and it's like they're pissed, but like in a nice way, because everyone's just, they're free. It's ultimate freedom.
I bet your shelf joke went down a treat. Literally.
Yes,
sucking dick.
Yes.
Yeah, that joke.
We're going to come back to that one in the quick fire questions.
Yes.
Yeah. But no, like it was fantastic. Like I would recommend for anyone who hasn't seen Kathryn's material to go and watch it. We had the pleasure of watching her a couple of times, and even had basically a personalised show at Edinburgh Fringe as well, where we got fully picked at, and were part of the jokes going.
Well, I think the thing is with Edinburgh, we've all done it, and it's hard to draw in a crowd. So
Hmm.
quite often, if you do go, it will be a personalised
It's
show.
true. How did you find that? Like, I know we went over a little bit afterwards, and like we were there. Like we saw that you were interacting with us a fair bit, and there wasn't too many people there, but there was enough. It was supposed to be, was it like a morning comedy routine? So of course there's going to be a lot less punters than normal.
Yeah.
But like, how did you find that?
So I like it doesn't faze me that much anymore. I think at first when you're doing comedy, you assume like because at first you're like, oh my god, I'm smashing every gig because you have no benchmark as to what good is. And then after you've done a few gigs, you're like, oh my god, I'm dying on my arse all the time because you have a benchmark for how what good comedy is. And then I think you have to sort of reassess. Uh, Understand what you can get from a room. So when you've got a room that is like three mates, a mum and her two children who are under the age of 10, which I think is pretty much the makeup of that room that we're talking about, then you're like, well, this isn't my live at the Apollo. Like, there is only so
Hmm.
much that I can get out of this, and that's fine. And if I'm having a nice time and you're having a nice time, and the mum, isn't complaining that you've taught her kids new filthy words and concepts, then that's fine. So
I,
actually, I quite like those little rooms.
Yeah, I mean, it was nice, and I feel like everyone had that little bit of nervousness at the beginning because it wasn't just
Yeah,
obviously yourself. There were other comedians who obviously pulled out that there was this young
yeah,
young person in the room. I feel like it then was addressed quite early on, and luckily it was the type of person who was there like, no, I specifically am aware that I'm bringing my child here. I don't care that they're listening to foul material or something like that, or swear words and stuff. Because I've had that. Theatre Royal Winchester, there was a showing of Antigone, but it was by, I can't remember off the top of my head who it was written by, but it was written as if it was done in, like London streets, like gangs and stuff like that. And there was a lot of swearing and stuff, and there were signs posted up around the theatre being like, oh yeah, there's going to be a lot of foul language for this. And I remember this family with a couple of young kids coming in and being like, yep, we'd like a few tickets please. And we're like, just to warn you, there is a fair bit of foul language for this show. And because obviously it's not like a film where they can literally stop you from going in a theatre. It's more of a recommendation unless it's completely and utterly inappropriate. But
yeah.
it was them watching this family just turn around and be like, oh no, they've read the script several times over, we know the person who wrote it. And you're like, wait, oh okay, fine, in your pop. And it's just like
Wait, they
so,
know the person that wrote Antigone. How old are these
no,
children?
the adaptation. But did you get what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
they're the type of parents, and this person in the room of the show we were talking about, like, they were very much like that parent. And then suddenly there's that like sigh of relief of being like, oh, you don't care about your child. No, that's not
Ooh.
it. But
But
at least it's not the opposite end of the spectrum where they're like,
yeah.
oh my god, I had no idea it was going to be this vulgar, and you're there like, it's a comedy show. Like,
Yeah, so that's it though. Like, I don't know how you feel about it from an acting standpoint, but certainly, like, I think, it depends. I don't like having children in the audience because,
Hmm.
and like, even if the parents are like, oh, don't worry, they've heard it all before, they haven't, they're 8, but and they're like, they know all of the swear words, it's fine. Like, you were saying that it's fine, and maybe it is fine to you, but I don't feel comfortable saying the terrible things that I'm gonna say in front of your child. And people never seem to appreciate that you as a performer might have a problem with
Hmm.
saying things of an adult nature or swearing or whatever in front of a child. Is that the same in acting? or because
I mean,
it's not your words, is
I mean,
it?
yeah, I just thought, is that like, yes, little Timmy here may have heard the word shit back in 2008, but he's not heard the C word yet. So,
Yeah.
but no, like with acting, I don't know about you, Jake, but with 44-inch chest, I had that because I started off, I threw it out there straight with the cunts. I'm going to say it, but it was one of those where it's like in the preview showing, I had my mum, I had my brother, I had my grandfather there, and my mum, she's heard me say everything, so I don't much care. My brother's even worse than I am. It was more so my granddad, because he's a bit more on that side, that conservative side of being like, you know, don't use certain words and stuff like that. And I remember the first one is like saying cunt, and everyone's feedback afterwards was they're like, no, you've got to own that word. You seemed really nervous. You seemed really scared. And I'm there like, because my grandfather's there. And at the end, he comes up to me and he's there like, there was a bit too much swearing in there. So, yeah, of course, I'm a bit nervous about it. But, Jake, how did you feel about 44-inch chess?
Oh man! Well, just for context for any listeners who aren't familiar with the show, 44-inch chest is something of a gangster drama with all of the foulest possible language that kind of comes with that. And yeah, I think I do definitely remember there were some audiences where there were like pretty darn young people kind of in the audience, and there's that weird dual instinct, especially at Edinburgh, where you're like, yeah, we sold tickets, and no, we shouldn't have sold tickets to those people. Oh God. So it's weird. It's I guess it's just one of those things that you kind of have to switch off a little bit, because otherwise you're playing specifically to those 2 or 3 audience members, and you're forgetting the crowd that is sat all around them that are all perfectly fine with hearing the worst sentences in the world. But yeah, and plus I suppose there's that extra level of course, whenever you perform on stage, you're kind of putting across a bit of a persona, but that's especially true in acting. It's very explicit that you are a character. And I guess that's something that we never have to really think about as actors, is how to be ourselves on stage. And I'm just wondering what that kind of process is like for you from like a comedy perspective. How do you kind of authentically be yourself when you're performing?
Yeah, I mean, like with just before you start, Kathryn, like it was 44-inch chest, people saying like you've got to own it, and I did. I almost had to switch that bit off and be like, of course I am not this character. So my character is horrible. He's a complete and utter dick. I do not agree with him in the slightest, but I need to be that character for the story. So you do switch that off, you perform it, and then if anyone didn't like it afterwards, you're like, we didn't write the script. I am not my character, kind of like Joffrey. Everyone hating on the actor is like, that's not him. He's not like
just
that.
a guy.
But yeah, so how is that for you, where you can't necessarily switch between those as easily?
That's it, because I think with stand-up, all of your successes are yours, but all of your failures are also yours. So it's like for example, I left a gig once and there was a woman and she said, everybody around me didn't like what you were saying, but I thought you were really good. And I was like, wow, everyone? That's so many people.
Backhanded compliment
I know.
Good lord.
She was just drunk and being nice.
That's
but
not
she
even
wasn't.
backhanded. That's a punch and then an apology. Like,
right. So like it is hard, when you've got people like that, and people don't think of you as a person. They genuinely don't see you as a person, which is why they can say stuff like that, because they don't think of you as somebody who is, sat down, written jokes, gone, tried them out. They've died on their arse. You've sat down, you've listened back to it, you've rewritten it, you've gone out, it's died on its arse again. You've done that process for months and months, and then you've got a bit that works, and then you've got on a train for 6 hours to a gig, and you've waited around in the rain for 2 hours, and then you've gone to the gig and you've done your thing, and they don't see any of that work. They don't. You're not a person who's done all that. You're just some like entertainer who's got on stage and said some stuff off the cuff. So yeah, I don't think people appreciate that. But I think it's like I don't play too much of a character. I caricature myself. So
Mm.
if I have a view, I'll just take it to its extreme and then
Hmm.
say that opinion. So
Mm.
it's not much in the way that, like, I have friends who really are a character, and there's a little bit of them in there, but it is just a character. But then
Mm.
also I think people don't, because they don't know that you're a character. They can't appreciate that you're a character because it's not a play. It's stand up. So you say something which is obviously not what I think, and
Mm.
obviously it's a caricature, and they think that
Hmm.
it's true, and they're like, "You're a terrible person." No, I
Yeah.
am, but I'm not.
I am a little bit, but not as much as you think I am. It makes me think
Yeah.
of Ricky Gervais. Like there's one bit where I think it's in his stand-up, he actually says, like, someone came up to me in the streets and he said, like, yeah, saw you in the office. And he said, oh, thank you, yeah. And he said, like, he didn't say if it was good or not. So why am I thanking him? Like,
Yeah.
and then he's one of those people where I never really used to like him as a comedian, but I think I've grown to appreciate him, if only because at first I thought he was just an arrogant, stuck-up person. Like, his show didn't at all appeal to me until I realised that he was making a character for himself. Like, him outside,
Yeah.
he probably has a load of that, like, narcissism thrown in and sprinkled in, but that's
Hmm.
not all he is. Whereas when he goes on stage, he's there like, no, I'm better than you. But he's saying it as a joke, and for people who don't realise that, they're the ones who then come away being like, oh, I don't like that because
Yeah.
he's being arrogant and narcissistic, when actually it's like, no, he's doing that on purpose because it's a character. But then that makes it worse in that people think he's either like that, or they meet him in real life and, like you said, they don't think he's an actual person who spent time sitting down writing that and trying to make that satire funny, when actually you just think he's like that in real life. Like,
Yeah.
And something that I think is really interesting is, having sort of seen you kind of perform, is just how kind of casual and conversational it all comes across. And so it's really interesting hearing you talk about those, like, long periods of writing a joke and then going out and trying it and then coming back and rewriting it and retesting it and everything. Like, it's just such a thing that you just don't think about, because so much of comedy just feels like it's being delivered kind of off the cuff, like it's something that's occurring to the comic right there and then.
Yeah.
I don't know, how long would you sort of say it takes to create? I think it's called like a tight five. Your kind of five
Yeah.
kind of like definite good sort of material that works. How long does it take to craft something like that?
to get your good shit, yeah.
Yeah, I don't know really, because I think so. Like my first 5 minutes.
Mm.
I mean, it's always changing because you start out getting 5 minutes, and honestly, like 4.5 of those minutes is dog shit. Like anybody who says that they've been smashing it from their first gig is a fucking liar. Like, it is so hard, and you're
Mm.
gonna be terrible for so long, and there are no shortcuts. It is what it is. You have to go out there and tell shit jokes and die on your ass for years before you can consider, like, you can get good. So you better enjoy it, is I
Yeah.
suppose all I'm saying,
Well,
because that's all you'll be doing it for. But I think to get, like, so the 5 minutes is always evolving, but I think, so for me to get like 5 minutes that I could go and take to, like a club that was sort of a professional one, I don't know, maybe about a year and a half, 2 years. But then, so I mean, you wouldn't be able to do 5 minutes at a pro club that sort of starts at 10 minutes, which
Mm.
then is like maybe about 2 or 3 years. But after that, you've got like, I have been doing my opening jokes. I've been doing them
Mm.
honestly for about 3 years. They still work. I've not had to I've not had to take them out because I
Mm.
like them and they work okay. So, like, you used to have bits like that, I'm just gonna keep doing that. But like the rate at which you then can start writing and producing more, because you're like, your hit rate gets better because you're around comedy, you know how to write a joke, you've written jokes. So you're like, your guesswork, it doesn't take as long to write
Mm.
something that will then do well on stage. So, you can guess that the people will find this funny, and they probably will, because you have died enough and told enough shit jokes that they are aware. Like, that's good. And also, like, on the pro circuit, and I don't know if this will come back or not, but you have to write a new Edinburgh hour every year, so that's an hour of material a year, which is a lot, really, isn't it?
Well, I was going to say, like, in regards to that, like, how much has the view of stand-up comedy changed for you? Like, when you first decided you wanted to give this a crack and you wanted to give it a go, to now, how much has your view of it changed, and what have you kind of discovered along the way? Because, you know, I can't imagine. I did like a small module back at uni, which was like popular performance, and we had to do all the things that were kind of like, you know, popular at the time, and stand-up comedy was one of them. And I was terrified. I am normally so good at getting up in front of a group of people and delivering a presentation, or just like making an idiot of myself. But my God, the fear that came out of me from just doing a little bit of stand-up material, all of like 10 minutes, to a class of people I know, I couldn't do it again. You know.
Yeah. See, that's it though. I can't do serious presentation. I hate it. I need punchlines so people are like, "You're doing good. We approve." And like, I remember I had to talk at my grandma's funeral, and everybody just assumed that I was going to be like good at public speaking because I do it a lot. But like, if there is a place where opening with a joke is a bad idea, it's at a funeral. So I was just like trying to, I was like putting jokes in there and stuff. I just feel like, no, not everything has to be that. You can just, and I was so nervous, and it wasn't to that many people, and I knew everybody, but like, it's one of the scariest things I've ever done, and I've been booed by 100 people at music festivals. I'd take it again over having to seriously talk in front of people and convey information.
Yeah, that's really interesting about the whole, you prefer that to the seriousness of it. Like, I suppose, there's a time and a place, like you said, because I'm there going, like, most comedians do the whole thing of, they've normally got a routine about, they went to a funeral and it's a bit sad, and then they all laughed about it, like, and there was some kind of joke or something. But I suppose with your type of material, the last thing you want to be doing is like at your nan's funeral making a minge joke or something. And then just like
it's all I've got. Dick jokes are my bread and butter.
But no, so tell us about that booed by 100 people bit. Like, what was that about?
Oh, so I went to a music festival and they had a comedy tent, and I got paid in a can of beer and a cheese toastie. I probably wouldn't travel quite so far again for that payment. But at the time, I was sort of, I went because I thought, well, it's a good experience of doing a music festival where the stakes are low. Because, next time I get booked for this, it's a different environment. Next time I get booked for this, money will be on the table, and suddenly the stakes are a bit higher. Whereas I can fuck up real bad, and I'm like, listen, mate, you paid me in cheese toasties. What did you expect?
Yeah.
And I had a story, which I think was okay. So it's a story about how I went to the doctors because I, found a lump in my boob. And I was worried that it was breast cancer, and it's a story that, like, a lot of people have been there, right? And the joke wasn't like, ha, people with cancer. The joke was, it was just a story about being worried about your health and the obstacles in the way of it. But not everybody always saw it that way, which is why I've stopped doing it now. And I did this story and they just really didn't like it. Everyone started booing. I managed to win them back and it was fine, and then I went and had a cheese toastie and watched a band, so it wasn't that bad. But it is a really weird moment when you just stood there watching that number of people be like, no. Boo.
Oh, like that
How
must
was
be... Sorry, go on, Jake.
I was just going to ask, how was the cheese toastie? Was it
Good,
worth the gig? Nice.
No, it wasn't worth travelling to Cheltenham for, but if you are in Cheltenham, it is a good cheese toastie.
What was it? Just cheese, or
just cheese toast.
not even a bit of onion sprinkled in, or no?
No.
Fantastic.
I were ready for it though. It's a long way to Cheltenham.
Yeah. I mean, I was gonna say, like, the difference of... So again, I've had it, and normally the whole thing that when we ask performers, like, what's a obscure or embarrassing memory or something like that, it normally comes down to forgetting your lines, or that fear that overcomes you when it's disappeared. And I'm sure you get that as well. But you're right in like when you said earlier, it's you. It's not like your character. Like, I can fluff up as a character, and if I bring it back, people might assume that's what was meant to happen. Unless I can just completely forget my lines and break character, they're going to assume that. But it's kind of like, I don't like singing, because I feel it's the same as stand-up, in that if I go out and sing, I could still be in character, but if I'm a shit singer, I'm a shit singer, and everyone's going to know about it, and there's nothing I can do about that. I can't get up and change that outcome, so I never do it, because I always feel so judged, because it's so personal. Like dancing, I know you can improve on dancing and singing and stuff, but like I'm not ready to put myself in that situation. But like, do you feel that kind of way with it? Like, when you're doing it, do you feel personally attacked, or do you have that removal of being like, well, it's my material, not me, like they're booing? Or
well, it's difficult, because I suppose your material is you, because it's not like, that was a genuine story that I had. Like, I did go to the I called the doctors, and they wouldn't give me an appointment, so I had to go to a walk-in centre for like 3 hours, and it was appalling. So it's like, that is, if people don't like your material, they don't like you. It is an aspect of you. It's not like you're reading somebody else's play, and like, you could, I'm sure you've been in plays where you're like, this is shit, but I'm getting paid for it, so I'll do it. Whereas like, there it's like, it's all on you. So that is, I suppose, the judgment is quite bad. But equally, you got to think, well, I do appreciate not everything is for everybody, and it doesn't have to be. And there's plenty of comedy that I've worked in comedy for a long time, not just as a performer, but like backstage and front of house and everything. So I have seen so much comedy, and like, I find that whatever you look at, you can pick out. You can be like, you know what, this is aimed at men. It isn't for me. That's okay. Not everything can be, but I can appreciate that you've done this, and this, and that's really good. Like, the structure of the show is great. There's always something. I don't think I've seen any comedy where I've walked away and been like, that was just appalling. You can always find something that someone's done that is good.
Yeah, I tend to like that with theatre or any kind of performance. Even if I don't like it, it's still interesting to know why you don't like it, and then analyse it, break it down, and be like, okay, that wasn't meant for me. So it's not that I hated it, it's just that I'm not the target audience, and I can walk away being like, it's a good show, but I just wouldn't go and watch it again or something. I mean, I was going to ask, what is your advice to anyone starting up? Like, if Jake and I were to buckle down tomorrow, decide that we're comedians, right?
Yeah.
What would your
the world
advice
would be in a very worrying position.
It would be absolutely appalling. You might as well call the apocalypse then and there. But like, what would your advice be to us?
I think that if anybody is even slightly considering doing comedy, fucking go for it. It's amazing. It's great. Like, you don't go into it being like, I'm going to be a professional comedian, I'm going to make loads of money, because that's a terrible, like, you have to work 10 years to get anywhere. You got to work really hard for 10 years. So don't go into it to have fun and have a nice time. And it's a really lovely community. It's a really welcoming community. There is, like, just do it would be the first bit of advice. have a fucking go. It's cracking. Even if you just do it once, you're like, I did it, yeah. And then I'd say, like, so courses get frowned upon, but I'm a big lover of a course. There's do a course. If you're like, I did a 1 day course because I was like, where do you begin? Like, what do I do? Because often people type uh, comedy gigs for newcomers, and they'll get directed to King Gong, which is the Gong show in London, and they've also got one in Manchester, which is marginally nicer, at the Comedy Store, where you have to try and last 5 minutes without getting booed off stage. Don't do that as your first gig. Do not do a Gong show as your first gig, because it's appalling, and the whole idea is that you are, you get they hurt your feelings. So like I would say, do a course, ask around, try and find like a nice gentle comedy night that will let you do 5 minutes without people booing at you. Like maybe do a course so you know how to write jokes. Just go to comedy and watch loads of it, so see what people are doing, see what works, see what doesn't work, see what you like and why you like it. Watch a wide variety, sort of professional, and go to open mics and just see what's going on. Read some books. There's like loads of really good comedy writing books out there you can get dead cheap. That'll just tell you how to write a joke. Keep it light, I'd say, because there's so many people who are like, I'm going to tackle sexism and racism in my first 5 minutes. Don't. And also don't do rape jokes or pedo jokes. They're not funny. No one likes them. You'll just embarrass yourself.
Oh, God. Well, it sounds like it's the type of thing that's... You've got to have a thick skin for that type of... Was it the Gong show?
Yeah, the Gong shows.
Gong show, yeah. Like, with that, you've got to have a thick skin. And also, like you said, it sounds like they're just setting you up for failure in that the whole premise is that they're going to try and boo you off. So people are there with the mindset of everyone's going to be shit. So that sounds appalling for like a starting gig.
It is. It's really bad. And also the other thing is that people are so scared of starting comedy because of the hecklers. They think that, like people are going to be just shouting awful abuse at you all the time, and they won't. Like that doesn't really happen unless you're at a Gong show, in which case maybe. But I think, like that's not a worry. I would say if you are gonna, considering starting, don't worry about hecklers because it won't happen at all at first. And usually hecklers are just people who've had such a nice time that they want to join in a bit. And they're like, yeah, me too. And it's so rare that you'll get people, because I've been doing it like 5 years now, and it's very rare that you get people, actually shouting horrible stuff at you. And they do sometimes. They have, and I'm sure they will again. And what a way to find out you shit, being just someone explicitly saying it to your face in front of like that many people. But the comedy is subjective, and on that occasion they weren't wrong. So like it. But yeah, I think that's the big thing that stops people from wanting to do comedy, and it shouldn't, because it's not that bad.
There was. We'll get onto the quickfire questions in a second, but I was just gonna say, like, it reminds me of, what's its name? Andy Nyman and Jeremy Dyson. They did with Ghost Stories a Q&A at the Lyric Hammersmith, and one of the quotes from that stuck with me is, the worst thing you can do is embarrass yourself. The worst thing you can do is embarrass yourself, so go and do it. Like, that's not a bad thing to embarrass yourself. Like, so just go, whatever idea you've got or whatever content you've got, go up and do it. And I think that is very prominent for like stand-up, is just the thing of, the worst thing that can happen is that people, for that particular one, just be like, no, I didn't like it. And you're like, cool, noted. Let's move on and change that.
Yeah, because one day you'll have a gig and you're like, this is the worst one. the, but and you're like, I'm just gonna cry for days. I did one where I genuinely apologized to every female comedian that I had access to because I felt like I'd wronged us all.
Bless you, Kathryn.
Yeah.
Oh no.
I was sat in the car. My mum was like, "Do you want to talk about it?" I was like, "Nope." I'm just gonna text every woman I know. But then after you get over it and it becomes a funny story. Like, I can laugh about that now. Someone called me a slag and I nearly cried.
You're right there, Kathryn. You got a tear going down your face. Like,
oh man, it was the worst. But also, like, everybody's had that story. Many people have it much worse than you. And, you know, you can laugh and you've joined that club now. And also, who cares, like, about, you know, 5 people didn't laugh in the back of a pub on a Wednesday night. Who gives a shit? At least you didn't travel all the way to Blackburn for some strangers to call you a slag, you know? Like,
Yeah, I guess, like, it can be like an upsetting thing kind of in the moment, but like you say, you get used to it, and then I guess a few days down the line, it's just more material. You know, if you get heckled and someone says something especially funny, you can that's just your joke now. They gave it to you. Yeah,
exactly.
All right, fantastic. So, just to start us off, we've been talking a lot about like gigs that haven't gone quite so well, or public speaking things that have been a little bit more scary, a little bit intimidating. So just to completely change track, Kathryn, what would you say is your favourite gig that you've ever played?
Well, so I think so I've got a couple. So the first, like the one where I was like, I'm a comedian now. Was the 31st of July, and I can't remember what year, but it was at the Frog and Bucket, and I did 8 minutes, and it just went so well, and my family were there, everyone had come to watch me, and the MC, she was like, oh, you're really good, and she ended up asking me to do tour support for her, and she like, oh my god, I love her so much, she's been great to me, she's been really awesome, and it was just like, and I used to work at the Frog and Bucket as well, so it was just everything, just a perfect gig, and I had such a wonderful time, and I was like, oh my god, nice. I think I'm doing it now. And then like the last gig that I did prior to all of this was on Friday the 13th of March last year, and it was one of these tour support slots, and it was just so nice. It was at Cambridge Junction, and it was just, we all knew what was coming, and you know, like, I just received a text saying that all my shifts were cancelled for the weekend, and I didn't know how I was going to make enough money to live. And I was just so stressed, and then I was just stood there like backstage waiting to go on, and I was just like, it doesn't, like, just enjoy this, because this could be the last one for months. You know, there could be at least 2 weeks that you're not gigging for, so just enjoy it. You know,
just those 2 weeks though.
Yeah, you know, and I just went out and just had a really nice time. You know, it's just that I'm just gonna enjoy this, and it was all like people who come specifically to see. It was Kiri Pritchard McLean. You know, everyone had come specifically to see her, so they're just such a lovely set of people as well. And you know, she's great. She was really nice, and you know, it's just perfect. And it was just like, oh, I really want to go back to that. Like, that's waiting for me. And it was such a nice one to end things.
That sounds really nice. So, one of my so keep on this theme of the positives, because I know that we've been talking about it. It's good to know about the negative aspects and be realistic with what you're likely to come across. But as a comedian, you're probably going to have a lot of funny moments. So what is, or you can maybe do a couple, what are the funniest comments from hecklers or stuff that you've received?
Oh,
Or from people afterwards or before, or anything like that. Just a favourite comments.
my favourite was so there's one in Crouch End that's called Downstairs at the King's Head, and it's like the one it's been going forever. It's like one of the oldest comedy clubs, and like it's really good. And you get 5 minutes when you're doing the sort of tryout spots, and then so I went and I was like I'd got. I think I had a competition coming up or something, so I was like, I just need to time this material and make sure that it is 5 minutes exactly. That was my goal from that gig. So I went on stage, and this old man shuffled in and sat in the middle of the front row. Nobody else was on the front row. And he was just like, "You've got lovely skin." And I was like,
Oh my god.
Thank you.
Hannibal Lecter's walked in.
Yeah,
like...
exactly. And then he was just like, "No, really," but like, I sort of like, "Oh, thank you," made a bit of a joke out of it, got back on track. He was like, "No, really, you've got lovely skin." And I'm like, I don't know what you want me to say to this. So then I went down the bloody Ed Gein route. Are you gonna start trying to make fucking lampshades out of it? Like, can someone come home with me just to make sure I get there and shit? But then obviously, that took up sort of 3 of my 5 minutes, and like the guy who runs it, he keeps notes on everyone. Like I would love to see his book, because everybody has passed through their doors and he writes notes on everybody. What a fucking collection of notes that would be. It's got everyone in it. Yeah. But I could see out of the corner of my eye, the lady who works on the door, she got up to tell this guy to shut the fuck up or leave. And he got her by the shoulder and just sat her back down again, like, no, let's see how this plays out. And in fairness, he just wanted to see if I could handle a rowdy weekend, which I showed him that I could. It was good. It was also, I didn't get to time my 5 minutes. I did about 10. But
I know we made a joke about Hannibal Lecter kind of earlier, but the more we're hearing, the more that's exactly who I can't help but picturing that kind of figure.
It's weird. It's fucking weird.
Very, very strange.
There's no two ways about it. It's an odd thing to say to someone.
Yeah. So absolutely. Jake, have you got any more other questions?
I do, yes. We kind of mentioned it at the kind of the start of the show, but now that we're finishing up, I was wondering, what is the shelf joke, if you feel comfortable telling it?
It's a joke about how everybody thinks that I'm a lesbian because I studied construction at uni. But I think it's a joke about how I did that, but so like I can suck cock and I can put up shelves, which I know it's not very funny when it's explained like that. But what did happen was a video of this went online at night, where they film it and they put it online, and the deal is one of the first things that comes up when you Google my name, and my boss has seen it. She brought it up in appraisal at work. And also, when I went back home, I answered the door and my auntie was there, and she was like, "Oh, hey Kathryn, I've just come round because I've got some shelves that want putting up." And I was like, "What? What a weird thing to say. What the fuck are you on about?" And then the penny slowly dropped that she'd been watching my videos. I think my cousins had Googled me, and I was very embarrassed. But she's since seen me live, and one, I've got nothing else, and two, I won't change for anyone. So yeah, suck her cock.
Yeah.
Keep it in a box.
Well, at least she didn't ask you to do the other thing.
I do like that
Under
one.
the bed.
Well, I'm trying to think of one other question, but I don't think there is much. Most of it has been answered throughout. I like every time I'm there, like trying to come up with questions, and it's like, oh, what about that one? Oh no, Jake asked that. Oh crap. Okay, right. What about this? Oh no, we kind of covered that. Fantastic. So why don't we leave this bit for you to tell us about what you've got coming up? So give us a bit of a plug. Tell us what you got currently going on.
I've got quite a lot going on, actually. I do my own podcast. It's called 0 Hours, and it is at podcast_hours on Twitter, but I don't really use that as much as I should. It's on iTunes. A lot of people had a lot of shit jobs. I interview comedians and artists and such about that. I have a website. It's kathrynmather.com, which I don't update as much as I should do. We're not in a theme here. I do videos with fellow comedian Sean Patrick called 2 Mins of Pat and Math. We're on Twitter, which is at Pat and Math, and we're doing our first live show, which I probably shouldn't say when and where, but it is on the 14th of June at Jesters in Farringdon at the Betsy Trotwood. And yeah, we're going to try and do that live. And then if you want to follow me, I am on Twitter, which is at KathMathComedy.
Very worth the follow, by the way. Very much so.
Yeah. Oh, thank you. And also, if anyone is ever wanting to do comedy, I know I said it before, please do. Just do it. Especially if you're a girl, we need you.
Do it and send Kathryn all of the videos, every single recording. Spam it. She's asking for it. And yeah, we wish you all the best, and we'll try and come up and see your live show. I didn't know about that, so that'll be very exciting. So yeah, well, I hope you enjoyed yourself. Jake, I hope you've been having a good time as
very
well.
much so. It's been lovely talking to you, Kathryn. Thank you very much for coming.
Thanks for having me. Take care.
There we go. That was Kathryn Mather, and what a fascinating conversation that was. Really, really, really enjoyed that. Learning a lot about the world of comedy and the sort of realities of being a performing comedian. David, what did you think?
I loved it. Like, Kathryn's just always great to talk to. As we said in the podcast, I worked with her in the past, and so it's always nice to have a bit of a catch up. And she's always got some wonderful stories to tell. Can't get enough of those stories of like the heckling and stuff. As bad as it seems, because obviously that was bad stuff for her. Oh my god, I can't. Like, I just need it. I love absorbing those different stories and everything.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Really, really, really great episode. Thank you very much for listening. Thank you very much for supporting us. Remember, you can find us at Twitter and Instagram at Oob Theatre, as well as on Facebook and on Patreon at Out of Bounds Theatre, as well as subscribing. Please do subscribe if you enjoyed today's episode. It would be fantastic to see some support for the show. We really, really appreciate it. And please do join us. Same time, same place next week. We're going to have another fantastic guest coming up. We're very, very excited to share it with you.
Exactly, yeah.
And yeah, thank you very much for listening. David, is there anything else?
No, again, I'd just like to say, if you want to get in touch with us, feel free, use all of our social media, send us a message, tell us your stories, we want to hear them. But I think apart from that, it's about that time, Jake, and I feel cheesy as all hell whenever we get round to it, but we gotta do it because it's in the script. So...
So, all that is left to say is thank you very much for joining us, and please do join us next week for another Offstage.